This week's best MMA bets, we're talking UFC Vegas 52, Bellator 278, and Bellator 279. 3 cards going down this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Bellator doing back-to-back nights, being on Friday and then competing with the UFC on Saturday. All 3 cards have decent betting action to potentially do, so let's jump into it. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn those post notifications on, and share the video as well. We'll do locks, dogs, props, and parlays, and we will start it off with the locks of the night. Really here, it's the locks of the nights because it's fights across 2 nights. We are going with lock number 1. It's going to be in the UFC. And I'll note that the value of this first one is terrible, but it is Dean Barry over Mike Jackson. A real full-time MMA fighter should always beat somebody doing the fight game part-time. I think Barry's going to dominate Mike Jackson, potentially getting a finish. Really don't love the betting side here, but I did have to mention it. I think the under is realistic, under 2.5 rounds at -195. Barry inside distance, -180. Barry should win the fight, and he should finish Mike Jackson, I think, within a round and a half here, truly. So maybe that under a round and a half, which the value is not bad. It's sitting at -120. But under 2.5, if I feel, is more so of a sure thing. But that is the first lock, and it's a bit of an ugly one. This next one's not great to look at either, but it is Tyson Pedro over Ike Villanueva. I think Pedro's going to win. The money line, -550, is not really worth a touch. What I like here is maybe you go Pedro by submission, which is at +125. I think there's a pretty good chance he gets Ike Villanueva to the mat, and I think he's going to submit him from there. I like Tyson Pedro as our second lock, but really that submission prop. Now, Alexander Romanov and Shea Sherman, it's a late notice bout edition. Sherman jumping in for Tanner Bozier. Romanov should be a lock here, and the value is hideous. -1,230 at best value. Really not great value for the betting. As far as the props, they don't have any unleashed yet, but what I will note to you is the prop that I would like there would be Romanov to win by submission, especially if you find it at any plus money. I think it's a very highly likely outcome for that matchup. Now, we're going to start getting into the locks, especially for the UFC, that I like more here. There's definitely more value on the side of these locks. This next one is going to be Kulong Ayori. I do feel like he is going to beat Cameron Else by a finish. I like the value, -220 for Ayori. I do think he could potentially get a stoppage inside of the distance. If you can get the knockout prop, that would be better. I have to jump to best fight odds to see if we have it available anywhere. We have inside distance for Ayori, +100. We'll jump back at the props again for the weigh-in recap show, so make sure you guys tune in on Friday. But Ayori wins by KO is something I like here. As far as the money line, he is -220, which isn't bad value. I definitely see him as a potentially valuable parlay addition. And the next UFC lock, and this one will be the final true lock from the UFC, it's going to be Jessica Andrade over Amanda Lemos. I think she's going to win, and I do think she gets a finish, -190 for Jessica Andrade. And then for this fight to be under 2.5 rounds is +120. I do think we're looking at a finish from Andrade in the second or third. Andrade to win by KO TKO +225. I don't hate the money line at -190 either. I think Jessica Andrade, pretty confident pick for me. I think matchup-wise, she's going to put a ton of pressure on Amanda Lemos, and I think that should stifle Lemos' game pretty bad. And I feel like Lemos is going to struggle a lot with the pressure boxing of Jessica Andrade and just the pure power in the hands as well. Overall, those are some UFC locks. I'll jump towards the Bellator side. And we'll talk about some of these potential Bellator plays to make. Now, this one is for Bellator 278. I don't love a ton of bets on this card, and I went through and found ones that I feel strong confidence for Bellator, because I don't really want to stir you guys wrong towards those early Bellator prelims, which I think are just a good way to burn money. This one here, though, Danny Sabatello over Jonel Lugo, I really don't like the line whatsoever. I think Lugo deserves to be a bit of a smaller underdog, but right now Sabatello is a -275 favorite, and I really see a high likelihood of him winning the fight. Probably Sabatello wins by a decision. I feel like we're going a bit long here. Sabatello minus 120 for the fight to be over 2.5 rounds is minus 265, but Sabatello by decision minus 120. That's pretty likely. Minus 310 for the money line. More of a parlay addition with Sabatello if you're looking to add somebody in, but I do think there's a pretty good shot that he gets it done. And now, of course, you have some of the stronger favorites on the card, like a Tufik Musayev, and then there's also like early fights of the night, Makoa Cooper. I just don't love these early prelim plays, and I think they could get you into a bit of trouble. Nate Andrews, another strong favorite guy that didn't look great in his debut against Awad, and he's coming in against an iffy guy in Murrow. I think he could potentially get caught, but not enough that I want to throw down on either side there. And then like Fabio Franca, Welber, Almeida. There's a good chance Almeida wins a decision, but he's coming off a disappointing loss in the last one, as is Franca. He's 34 years of age as well, whereas Franca's only 27. So you're seeing that as like a strong favorite. This is a guy that should win. He looks pretty good. I still think it's moderate risk because the lines are very inflated. That is Bellator 278, though. There's really just one lock I like there. We'll jump to 279. On Bellator 279, locks that I do feel like might be worth a touch will be number one, female MMA. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane at minus 300. I like her to beat Justin Kish. I do think she wins the fight by decision here. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane to win by decision, plus 135. It's not impossible she gets a finish either, though. But Ilima-Lei Macfarlane for the win at minus 300. I do think she's a nice parlay piece. We'll talk parlays at the end, especially if you're crossing things over. Pretty interesting action to potentially be had. Next one going to be Kiyoji Horaguchi. I do think he beats Patchy Mix, and I think there's a chance he stops Mix. But Mix is a very long, tough wrestler. Not my favorite of the bets, but I do feel I want to give Horaguchi that lock status. But of course, it's a fist fight. Minus 235 Horaguchi, plus 215 for Patchy. I think we're going a bit over 1.5, minus 265. I do think Horaguchi should win inside distance. That's plus 130 tag, though. Potentially getting it done with his hands. I see him hurting Patchy Mix on the feet, potentially stopping him with strikes. The next one that I am feeling as far as the locks, and this is still Bellator 279, it's got to be Rafael Stotts, or rather Rafael Stotts over Juan Archuleta, minus 250 for Stotts. I always say Rafael Stotts like he's Portuguese, but he's not Portuguese. It's Rafael Stotts. I think he's going to beat Archuleta. Minus 250 is a bit inflated, but it's not a bad tag for a guy I think that stylistically matches up well. I do think the better grappler is Stotts. Striking-wise, I see Stotts giving Archuleta problems. I see him winning the fight. I see him going 5. I see him winning a unanimous decision. Let's see. Stotts to win a decision is minus 110. Don't like the bet, but I do think Stotts at minus 250 could be a parlay addition, or if you're throwing heavy at a Bellator fight for money line. And then looking at this card, there's other like strong favorites. Even, Chris Cyborg at the top is an absolute lock. Chris Cyborg is going to win the fight, but I just really can't argue really a bet towards her side at minus 855. There's no quality value there. Do we go under 2.5 rounds, minus 195? Maybe the most likely of the bets. Under 3.5 is minus 300. I do think Cyborg gets a finish of Arlene Blenko, but I don't like the value on the line at all. Minus 855 is just way too wide. There's other strong favorites on the card as you dig down. Just be cautious what you're doing there. Sumuko Inaba should get the win, minus 500 against Whitney Piles, but the line is ugly, and it is women's MMA. Jordan Winsky, early fight on the prelims. I don't like betting those early prelims on Bellator, so I will personally pass. But definitely some solid plays. I like the locks that I've listed off. Those are my favorite picks from all three of the cards. I do want to jump towards the dog side. We'll jump back to UFC. We'll talk some underdogs that I think could have some value throwing down on. The first underdog for the UFC is Su Matarazzi. He's sitting at plus 160 over Manel Kape. I do think there's a good chance that Matarazzi wins a competitive striking decision. Long guy, fights well with his kickboxing from range. I like him in this matchup. I think Kape's a difficult fight. I could see a 29-28, but I like Matarazzi decision. That's plus 290. I do think think we're going over a round and a half, minus 310. Over 2.5 is more dangerous because there could be a stoppage on either side, but that is minus 165. I like Su Matarajin money line, though, plus 160. I think he's an underdog that might be worth an attack if you're looking for dogs in the UFC. Next dog is going to be close money dog, but still underdog nonetheless. It's Lando Venata. You can find him at plus 105. I do think he's going to beat Charles Jourdain in an impressive striking match, but don't be surprised when Venata tries to time some takedowns and throw Jourdain's stand-up game off a bit. I feel like we're probably going the full 3 here. I like fight goes distance, minus 150. Over 2.5, minus 175. I do think Venata wins by decision. That is sitting at plus 225. So the value there I feel like is pretty decent if you're on the Venata side, because he's probably winning a decision in a competitive battle, but one that he should edge out over Jourdain. I also like the high-level competition of Lando Venata. He's fought some decent guys and gone long with solid fighters. The next dog that I am feeling for the UFC, another close money one, and I don't love him as a dog, but he is a pick. It's going to be Felipe Linz, plus 105. I do think there's a pretty solid chance he beats Marcin Pręgio here, especially at the close plus money. I see the striking of Pręgio a bit more wild, a bit more openings. I think Linz could counter him. Granted, he's dropping to 205, which is going to be a test for him. I'm picking the side. It's not great plus money, so it might not be worth the touch unless you're also feeling that Linz side with a bit of confidence. It's plus 105. I think that Felipe Linz, it's probably towards maybe TKO or decision, so I think you're going to be in risky territory trying to prop this one up. I prefer Linz money line if you're attacking the dog at the close money. It is essentially a pick'ems matchup here between these two light heavyweights. Linz, though, the former heavyweight. And the next of our dogs for the UFC, the final one too for the UFC, Dwight Grant, plus 100 over Sergey Kenzadoko. I do think that Dwight Grant could land some decent punches. I think he's got a bit of a boxing edge over Sergey. I feel like he's a bit quicker with his hands. He's a guy that, even he's taken some losses, tends to perform fairly well. Not a young guy in the fight game, but Sergey coming off a bit of a layoff, haven't been super impressed with him. I can see Dwight Grant edging this one out. I like Dwight Grant at plus 100. I think there's a pretty solid chance that he gets this one done. Leaning it really towards that decision, Grant by decision, plus 275, but I don't love the bet. Over 1.5, minus 325. Over 2.5, minus 170. I do think we're going the over. And I think Dwight Grant at that slight plus money is the one there. I'm picking him to get it done. Let's jump towards Bellator and talk about a couple of dogs there. With Bellator 278 to start off, dog number 1 that I am feeling is in the main event. I like Liz Carmouche to beat Juliana Velasquez here. I think she's a tough stylistic matchup for her, especially being as physically strong as she is. I think she could have some edges in the clinch. I think that she's going to be there for the full 5, giving Velasquez a very difficult fight. Velasquez in the last one had a fairly difficult title defense. Now, we got to pull the name up of the opponent. The names escape me. I see her face. But then Danielle Kiholtz. Danielle Kiholtz. That was the last fight for Juliana Velasquez. It was Kiholtz. And you know what? Denise Kiholtz. Excuse me, not Danielle. Denise Kiholtz. That was a competitive back and forth, and Kiholtz was in that fight. I think that this is a good matchup for Liz Carmouche to get a win. And I do think we're looking at Anu plus money, plus 165-ish value for Liz Carmouche, depending where you go. I think she's a live underdog and one to attack. If you look through some of the other fights on these Bellator 278 card, I don't love attacking some of these, lesser quality dogs. Personally, I only bet the highest level of MMA, so some of the prelim fights I personally pass on, so I don't want to pass that on to you and say, hey, bet on these early prelims. They're very iffy, but maybe you can get some plus money. I'm going on somebody that's proven veteran, Liz Carmouche, Bellator 278 dog that I'm liking as far as the betting side. We'll jump to Bellator 279, and the dog there that I feel like is very live. And it's unfortunate I'm picking Levan Chokeli over Goichi Yamamuchi. I'm a Yamamuchi fan. As a fan, I'd like Yamamuchi to win, but he's jumping up to 170. I think the physical strength is going to be a difference, and Chokeli's a difficult guy to deal with, I believe, from top. I think the striking could be fairly competitive. Yamamuchi, very dangerous when it goes to the floor, but he's up a weight class fighting a big man, somebody that's strong in Levon Chokeli. I think that could be a problem. Plus 175 for Levon Chokeli as a dog. I do feel like he's live. I don't really love the props in this fight, but I think over 1.5, minus 115. I feel like there's a low chance that either one of these guys are getting a first round and a half finish. I think it's going a little bit longer here. So over 1.5, minus 115 I like. Or if you're on the dog side, Levon Chokeli plus 175 over Goichi Yamamuchi as far as these Bellator 279 cards. So we got 278, 279, and the UFC card covered as far as dogs. I only like picking the confident ones. I like including for the bigger fights on the card. More proven guys, and I think Levon, hard matchup for Goichi Yamamuchi. Now, let's jump to the pure prop section. Make sure you guys smash the like button if you haven't yet. We'll just cover a few props that weren't listed off as we went through and talked about the locks and dogs. I like the Burial right under 2.5, minus 185 for Burial money line, and then Jordan Wright is plus 160. I like the Burial side to win. I do think under 2.5, minus 145. Jordan Wright has been finished in each one of his fights. I think Burial will eventually touch the chin. As good as Wright looks offensively, the defense is a constant concern. Minus 145. Also, we'll note Burial by KO is plus 145 as well. I do think he beats Jordan Wright here. I don't think Burial's going to have double back-to-back like bad knockout losses. I feel like he's going to be able to exploit Jordan Wright's game, especially mixing in a bit of grappling. I like the Marc-Andre Beriot side. And then the next prop is another over-under. I feel like the ladies Macy Barber and Montana De La Rosa are going to go wrong a little bit long. De La Rosa minus 175, or excuse me, Barber minus 175, De La Rosa plus 160. I like the Macy Barber side to win. I do think she wins a decision. Fight goes distance is minus 215. Over 2.5, minus 250. I think we're going over 2.5. I think we're going distance. I think this is a 3-round fight that Barber wins by decision. She's plus 125 for that. So overall, there's some decent extra props to throw out at you guys that I felt like I was feeling good about, and then ones that we hadn't talked about. Other ones that we talked about through the locks and the dog section, I like for each one of those fights. These are just some additions. Now, I want to jump to the favorite section, which is the parlays. Some parlays to potentially play. I got a good slew of them written down here that I think could have some high likelihood of success. Now, the first one is going to be Jessica Andrade and Kulong Ayori. Plus 120. This is a pure UFC parlay, and I think the value of it is good, and I think the likelihood of victory is also fairly high. I like both of them to win with fair confidence, and the odds aren't hideous for either one of them. Now, if you wanted to add something in, add in Barber De La Rosa for the over 2.5 rounds. You're now sitting at plus 200 if you were looking to add in that. Maybe mix it up, have three fights with a bit of money behind. Excuse me, would that be three? 3 fights with a bit of money behind. But let's say maybe you're not on the Ayori Kulong side. I know some people won't be. Andrade, Barber, De La Rosa still gives you plus money. You're sitting at plus 105 if you did that. And I think that's a solid play with just, 2 fights to throw down on. Mixing all 4 really is something you could potentially do for the plus money. It'll get you a little bit more, but I think maybe you could play it a bit safer. I'll pull up the line. I don't have it written down exactly what it's going to be worth, but let me set this one up because I want to get the exact value of this one. So Andrade, and then let's say we went with the De La Rosa and Barber over 2.5. That's, the plus 105 there. And then you added in Ayori Kulong. It'd be plus 200 for that 3-way play, which I think is decent value. I got some separate ones that I made towards adding in Bellator fighters. Let's say you go Jessica Andrade from UFC, Alimale McFarland from Bellator, and Rafael Stotts from Bellator. I like that 3-fighter play with a lot of confidence here if you're looking just to bet fighters. Plus 165 for that one. If you wanted to add in Ayori Kulong, plus 285. I'm digging this cross play for those 4, and plus 285 is great money. You want to get a little crazier with it, add in the Barber over 2.5. You got plus 425 now, which is, I still think, a fairly likely outcome. Add in Danny Sabatello and Jonel Lugo to go over 2.5 rounds, you got plus 620. I think that's a good Hail Mary style play with a fair likelihood of coming through. But let's say you're like, listen, I don't want that. I want to maybe mix in some dogs. Andrade, Clay Guida at close money, plus 190. Andrade, Su Mataraji brings you to plus 290 if you mix those two up. Of course, you can add in more of the Bellator fighters that you're feeling. The ones like Alima and Stotts, I just like the stylistic matchups. Horaguchi is somebody we could also potentially add in. Let me quickly do that now. So we'll go with Horaguchi, Andrade, Elimale, and Stotts. Let's get this pulled up here. All right, Andrade. They have it so out of order on best fight odds, guys. Way out of whack. It's just all one page for both of the cards this weekend. Stotts and Horaguchi. So Stotts, Andrade, Horaguchi, and Elimale McFarlane is plus 255. That's some good plus money. I think these are some solid parlays to consider here. Be smart with them. Do some extra research of your own before finalizing them. One that I'm going to call it the absolute Hail Mary, kind of like the F it parlay. It's going to be Jessica Andrade, Ayori Kulong, over 2.5 for the ladies fight for Barber and De La Rosa. Cyborg, Tyson Pedro, Dean Barry, Alexander Romanov, and Rafael Stotts. You're looking at plus 495, which is going to be like the pretty damn likely of coming through, but you're throwing a lot of people at it that are like strong confidence picks. Plus 495, though, I think there's a fair amount of possibility for that one. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the parlays, the betting breakdown overall. I always have a blast doing this week's best MMA shows. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to smash the like button. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn those post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. Much love, my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, guys.